Okay, you're on film.
Here we go.
We have fire.
And that's all it took. The ceremonial flick of the bic, which started our very first prescribed burn here at our brand new place in Southwest Georgia. Once again, it's your boy, the Flyest Stunk, and I'm gonna take a little detour from my normal aviation stuff to kind of show you the reason why we are using our aviation, which was to move out to a rural part of the country. And in this particular case, rural Southwest Georgia. Now this might seem crazy, but this is actually a normal practice in this area. It's something that's been used for hundreds of years, created by indigenous communities. And what it is a restorative practice, burning away the underbrush, the overgrowth, dry twigs, stuff like that. What it does is it prevents forest fires, it prevents wildfires, and ultimately the ash helps to refertilize and revitalize the ground, bringing back greener, better suited shrubs and trees and whatnot for the wildlife that's in the area. Prescribed burning also helps to rid your property of invasive plants and species like Chinese and Japanese privet, ivy, poison oak, poison everything, timber rattlers, fleas, ticks, ants, anything for the most part that's rolling around on the ground that you would prefer to not be, so that you can actually either farm or enjoy what you have. The prescribed fires helps to get rid of all of those things, or at least most of those things temporarily. Now, typically, you want to burn your property once every 2.5 to 3 years. And in this area, there's actually a prescribed burn season, and which usually starts around wintertime when things start to die off after the first or second freeze. And we've had quite a few of them this year. And oddly enough, which is the craziest thing to me, you don't even have to have anyone come out there with you. We've got 20 acres here in Southwest Georgia, all sitting underneath planted pines. So we've got 20 acres of that. And all we really have to do is just call the Georgia Forestry Service, request a burn permit, and we can light our entire property on fire as soon as they give us the go ahead. It really is truly insane.
Huh? Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Like, I mean, I was worried about the neighbors, but it's straight up.
Now, one of the cool things that was happening in this particular moment was the fire was going to the break. And the break in this particular case is our driveway from the road. Now, when you get a burn permit, the Georgia, in our case, the Georgia Forestry Service, they will look at the wind, and of course they don't want smoke going towards any of the roads or the highways, and we do have a highway or a state highway that's pretty close. But when the fire went to the break, and I'll explain what an actual break is in a moment, the smoke just went straight up, which I was happy with because, of course, being new, we don't want to piss off any of our neighbors. And we do have some neighbors fairly close. I mean, they're pretty hundreds of yards away, but we didn't want any lingering smoke to come towards their house. The smoke went to the break and just went straight up. And that was something that I was extremely happy with. And as you see, some of the people that are walking around in yellow, that's actually the Georgia Forestry Service guys. Danielle, Flyest Cat Lady, which you've seen her before, she insisted that for our very, very first burn, I was not allowed to burn the property all by myself, which kind of sucked. Now the wind kept changing direction. At first, as you saw a moment ago, it went towards the break and then went straight up. And then in this particular instance, the wind shifted and then started blowing back the other direction, which at the same time, remember, fire is kind of a living, breathing thing. So it's pulling air from various locations, but you still have the wind and the smoke that will either sit or linger. And in a few seconds, you will see as I'm walking out, this whole entire area is full of smoke. And this is from the actual road. But then the wind, and you will see it, it's insane. The wind will then shift and completely clear this entire area. In fact, if you look over to the right, you will see the wind start to shift as I'm walking across the road. The wind shifts and clears the entire street.
Fresh air. Good Lord. Wind just blew that right out.
Yes, of course, that's me being goofy, making noises, saying, burn it, burn it, burn it, because I was pretty excited the entire time. Then sure enough, as I'm just meandering up the road, the wind shifts again and starts to blow it right back at me, and it was coming thick. So I said, nope, gotta get my butt out of there, because that smoke was insanely choking.
Working its way on over. Get in there.
Being that this was our first burn, I wanted to stay out of the way of the professionals. So I was kind of backtracking along some of the side roads and trails that we do have. And as you can kind of see, the planted design of our pine trees. And I'm just kind of looking at different various areas. And of course, one of the most important things was to make sure that the fire did not make its way towards the house. And as you can see, this is the area to the closest of our house. This is kind of just right across the actual literal driveway, and it was getting after it as well. Now, another reason why you do a prescribed burn is because you want to rid yourself of specifically unwanted trees and bushes and stuff. So the previous owner of this house that we bought it from, they hadn't burned the property in almost 10 years. And because we've got planted pines, you kind of want the entire area to be flat and smooth around the pines. And as you see right here, when the fire comes through, it kills up to a certain height, depending upon what they call the heat or the intensity of the fire, so that you don't have to mow it or get something much more expensive like a forestry mulcher, which we did do prior to this burn in the very, very front area. But this is the area that I always like to call the Predator, because when you look at it, it looks like the jungle from the Predator. This is to the left of our front driveway from the road. And of course, we hope that the fire would have been a little bit more intense to incinerate all of these. But what it does is it burns and kills some of the tree saplings, some of the privet that just happens to be there, which no one wants. And what that allows you to do later is to go over it with a tractor or a brush hog. And it's just as easy and just as simple to cut as you would cut grass, even though they're all trees. And as you see right here, it did burn some of these tree and pine saplings that are right there, but it didn't completely incinerate them. What it did is it breached the small brand new trunks, popped the trunks, pops through the bark, and that renders the tree dead. But it didn't go away. The fire wasn't intense enough to completely and totally turn them to ash. So we now then have to go back over it with either a brush hog or unfortunately a forestry mulcher, because we still do have some what they call volunteer pines. This again is the area near the front of the house across from the driveway. This is the part that I was just referring to, that we did happen to take a forestry mulcher through and cut down some of the bushes that had been growing for the previous 10 years that the previous owner had never burned. And so it's smoldering because there's a lot of tree and wood and mulch that's all over the ground. So the fire is just kind of resting on that, and it's just smoldering that area. It didn't really burn as cleanly as we wanted to, and if you look in the front of that little ash line, there's still a lot of the mulch that's there and some of the pine needles. Unfortunately, it didn't get as intense as we really wanted it in various areas to be able to burn all the way down to the dirt. But again, it hadn't burned in 10 years. So you had 10 years of debris and grasses and leaves and all this other stuff that's just sitting on the ground. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to do it again, probably in the late summer. Now this is the area on the other side of the house, and they had just started, and we also had mulched a good chunk of this area. Now, of course, I didn't go back to the other side of the property. I'm really only showing you about 10% because I wanted to stay nearest the house, but they started the fire from the very back side of the property as well to kind of burn its way back towards the house. So you'll have a lead fire or a head fire, and then they have a backfire. And what they want to do is they want to use the wind to make those two fires converge on each other, hopefully get the fire to be as intense as possible. And as you can see in the background, it got intense in certain spots, in certain areas that you could see. The bad part about this area, and as you look at the very bottom here, we had a lot of mulch. The fire really didn't make its way all the way to the front. So that was something I was a little disappointed at. And of course, they're still trying to make sure that the smoke doesn't make its way towards the house. And it is going straight up. It was a perfect day to burn. The wind was being cooperative. The humidity was low, because you always want to burn when the humidity is low. But I do think that because there was some rain about 4 or 5 days prior, and this ground is very soppy. I don't know if that's a word, but it does retain a lot of moisture, and there was so much debris and fuel on the ground that I think it got to it burned surface level, and then that prevented.
All right, see, now I'm coming back on that spot that I blew a second ago, and look at it. It's still burning that little log or whatever it was, and it's good fire still. But oh my god, all these trees that fell over that direction. Now, as you can see, it's burning up above this privet, but it's still not burning the privet. Right now, I can spread that, or try to, so that it catches the top of it. And if it catches the top of it, then maybe it'll light this little area and stuff like that, which would be lovely. And hopefully it does. And then this other section is going back into this log, which would be lovely. But I'm totally fine with it burning, so I'm gonna leave it alone. Now, what happens if we go inside and it catches all this stuff? All right, well then it just catches all this stuff and it burns, but it's gonna burn itself out, so it's not a big deal. But there is an area closer to the house. The house is way over there, you can't see it. There's an area that's over here burning closer to the house that I clearly I can't get to it from here, so I'm gonna have to get to it from the house and walk backwards. But it's definitely lit, which is good. It's on the floor. So if that's still burning, as long as it's not burning towards the house and getting smoke in the house, then I'll just let it burn.
So after forestry had left, I did obviously a little recon for myself because there were quite a few areas that they were not able to burn. Plus, we have an evil privet patch in the more southern part, the more back area, and privet that's alive does not burn. You have to use like napalm or something, which we're gonna obviously have to do later. But I went through, and as you saw previously, I used my leaf blower, which is actually a tool that forestry would use to help put more air and direct the burning. But as you see, like right here where it's split, we've got some mulch areas and some pine needles and everything. And they actually did a water line to make sure that it didn't burn. But as you see, I'm going ahead and going through and trying to keep some of the fires burning, because as you see, as you burn the top layer, the ash creates a barrier to some of the undergrowth that's underneath it. But of course, it's staying on fire because these are just chips of wood. But I'm walking through, and as you see, there's a big nasty looking privet that's right there that just will not incinerate itself. But everything else over here is just basically from the pine needles and some of the leaves and the whole nine. And although it still is green, it did in fact die. And if you were to look at it right now, it's deader than dead. But some of this area, I had hoped that my expectation was that it would completely and totally incinerate. We have quite a few fallen full-size pines from Hurricane Michael that we have to then go back and just completely cut up.
Totally fine with letting it burn. Wake it up a little more. All right. So today was an absolute fun day. Whoops, let me get that on there. Today was a fun day. Burnt up a bunch of stuff. I thought it was gonna be a little bit crazier than it actually was, but you know, it's all part of the process. I'm actually kind of happy. Finally got it out of the way. It's a means to an end. It's gonna look crazy, but it's actually supposed to rain like crazy tomorrow. So once it rains, the ash and stuff will kind of dissipate. New growth will probably start pretty quickly, but then again, it's supposed to snow Monday. So we shall see, but you know, you move out to the sticks. This is the kind of stuff you gotta deal with. But this is just burn number one. And mini. It looks crazy right now. Once we get this all cleaned up, get the side-by-side and the tractor to run over this stuff, get the grass growing, and then burn it again, and then get the grass growing, and we can get everything going. So burn number one, got it out of the way. Should fly a stump. See ya.